just like that. Well, hey, we were just chatting. It's 5 a.m. local time. Hey,
That's right, Kevin. Yeah, it's a good early start this morning. And I was just saying to you, my dog, so I apologize in advance for interruptions. My dog is a bit confused as to what I'm doing right now, and she's pretty keen to help out. So she may well come and share her opinion during this call.
I think I'm doing one of these with Aaron from Roost, and I think my dog went this first time. My dog's normally pretty passive, pretty quiet, small little dog, and she went nuts for some reason on that episode, but she's not here today, which is good. So, but we don't mind dogs barking in the background.
Excellent.
Oh,
Right.
yeah. So I imagine you have a lot of early days. I guess just in general, just being having a global focus. I imagine you're up pretty early these days.
Yeah, it's interesting. So it's Tuesday to Saturday as well, of course. So um, for you today, I think is must be Wednesday, Thursday.
Not
No, what are
taste.
you? Tuesday. You're Tuesday. You're
You're
Tuesday. Yeah.
Tuesday. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're Tuesday. Yeah, of course. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. We're Wednesday. That's right. Yeah.
So I'm,
Need
I'm
more coffee to do
talking
the
to you in the
calculation.
future. I love
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
Yeah. Always ahead of the game. But thanks for taking some time, bright and early. Um, I'd like to do is kind of go back and kind of figure out kind of how you got here. So try not to go too far back, but we might go back there. Hey, let's go back there. Let's go back to the early days of Andrew. I guess where you're from, where'd you grow up, where'd you go to school, all
Okay.
that fun stuff.
Well, look, I'm an Aucklander, New Zealand. Been here, lived here all my life. It's a wonderful city to grow up in and to raise a family. We live right by a big, beautiful harbour. Nice. It's a fantastic a place. And I'm a young schoolboy, must have been 14, 15 at the time. My father is a general building contractor. This is 1980s. I know that a lot of people on this call might not remember the 80s. Some will, some won't. Some will wish they didn't. Um, and so I'm a schoolboy, and I'm watching my father get out calculations to work out how much concrete he needed in the foundations he used to do as a general contractor. And in those days, we had these very first computers were hitting the market, and they were Casio. They looked like a really overgrown calculator. And I sit there thinking, you know what? We could write a program of these things, Dad, that would allow you to do that calculation in a tenth of the time it's taking you to do it. Probably be more accurate, less likely to make a mistake, easier to read its writing, and you can get on with other things. And it was this awakening and the realization that computers were an opportunity to allow businesses to be more productive and effective. I remember around the same time going out to a large importer of motor vehicles, and they had a massive, what felt to me like a massive room at the time, lined rows and rows of desks, people sitting there with adding machines doing the calculations to work out, I guess, stock levels and throughput and so forth that we do in Excel today in half an hour. And these guys had a row of accountants doing the stuff manually because back then that was how you did things.
Yeah.
And so the realization to me was there was this wonderful new advance coming out. It was technology and allowed businesses and any organization for that matter to be able to do things faster, more efficiently, more accurately than ever before, and to allow those people doing those fairly mundane jobs to be able to go on and do things that were more creative, more interesting, and more fulfilling for them. So that was really quite a life-changing kind of observation for me, and it took me down the career path of wanting to spend my time in IT helping businesses to realize those outcomes.
So you are from the future. That was early days, being young and kind of being
I don't think
fortuitous, having thinking how you can
I don't
solve
think
problems. Yeah.
I don't think they made the movie yet, Back to the Future. I think it was around the same time.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So, I mean, it sounds like it was pretty impressionable. I mean, you just remember that. I mean, that particular moment, and trying to solve for that challenge. I mean, I guess that's pretty cool. You can think back that far, and it's kind of the origin, I guess, of or the your first foot into advancing technology. It sounds like.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly right. I then went on. I did my Bachelor of Science and did my accounting and economics at university. My first job as an accountant. Back in those days, we were sort of just transitioning into this thing called Lotus 123.
Mm.
And again, the same observation applies. There's people there with printouts going through lines of policy data, as it was. It was an insurance company I was working for, bringing together currency calculations from around the world. And again, things fairly manual. And there had to be a way to make that more efficient, to be able to do those things in a manner that was more timely and more accurate. And I just continue to look for those opportunities because ultimately, we all exist for a purpose. And I'm quite a fan of Simon Sinek, and we've all seen that really famous video of understanding what your why is all
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
And so for me, there's this really obvious why, which is that if we can help organizations to achieve their goals more efficiently, more accurately, more quickly, more nimbly, then that organization is able to make a better contribution to the community that it exists in. So better outcomes for stakeholders, better outcomes for shareholders, better outcomes for their customers, better outcomes for everybody that they touch.
Yeah.
And that's my observation. That's exactly what happens. If we use technology and apply technology really well to everyday problems that our customers or experience, then we were able to make quite a big difference to them and allow them to do the things that they set out to achieve.
It's awesome. So, yeah, I guess you had did that the Bachelor of Science, and then I
Mm.
guess what was the first job right after school?
Yes, I was after school. I used university part-time jobs. My first proper job was as an accountant, and I lasted on that
Mm.
job for around about 3 months before I'd realised just how utterly tedious accounting was for me, and how much more interesting it was to take these really mechanical, mundane processes and find a better way to do them. And reasonably quickly fell into that path. I then went on from there to go work for a law firm as their IT manager.
Mm.
And again, much the same thing. Law firms back then had this resistance to putting computers on the desks of lawyers, or authors as they call them, because it was some kind of status symbol to not have a computer on your desk. It was kind of the people down there, the workers had computer screens, and the people generating the IP did not. And the idea of introducing them to, in those days, it was Windows 3, and explaining to them that they could actually use the computer to do corrections to Word documents, as it was back then, and other things, were a much more efficient use of their time, and try and help people to sort of overcome that, what in those days was a mental block. Doesn't it seem so arcane now that people would have proudly not had a computer on their desk and thought it was beneath them to use one of these, effectively what they saw as a word processing device, rather than what we know them as today? It's quite an incredible transformation that we've been through in just 20, 30 years.
Absolutely. I think you're more, I guess, maybe the status symbol was how many books you had on the shelf, right? And
That's exactly right. Yeah.
yeah, interesting. So it
Yeah.
sounds like you're constantly looking for ways to become more efficient, right? I mean, I guess it's certainly a theme, right? I mean, starting up young, looking for efficiencies, got to be a better way, and then at the law firm. And then what was next? What was after that law
Well, at
firm?
that point, I set up my own MSP. So I'm still in my 20s in those days, and I set up what became my MSP, which I still got today. It's got about 40 staff, 42 staff working in it now. So it's a reasonable MSP operating across 2 cities. And again, same thing applies. We're sitting there and we started off, wanting to try and be transformational. We spent about 10 years finding ourselves doing IT support, and we still obviously do a lot of that like all MSPs. But the piece that's always really interested me is understanding the customers that the MSP's got and helping them to achieve their goals. So we sit around, we do our business plan, we say, this quarter I want to do this thing with our cybersecurity offering. I want to standardize our stack around these things over here, introduce the service. Customers are just the same. They're saying, we want to digitize this process. We want to bring this service to market. We want to expand our reach and open up a presence in this geography. We want to mitigate this risk that we see. As we look ahead, we see a challenge in recruiting staff in this space, so we want to try and see how we can automate processes so we're less reliant on people, or we've got a problem with X, Y, and Z. And almost always, IT is the solution to that. One of our customers works in the deaf community, and their challenge is always getting people that can do sign language interpretation. It's helping people get access to the services that they need. If you're a deaf person going out to a hospital or a doctor's visit or a dentist or anything like that, and you can't communicate with the service provider, it's really hard for you. So finding a way to make those sorts of things more accessible, that's really fulfilling, and it makes a massive difference to the people that are around us if we can help them to do the things that they really care about. And so that's been a bit of my MSP journey that I've most enjoyed, is saying, how can our MSP not just make sure your IT works, but make sure that your IT works for you to achieve the goals that you've got in whatever it is that your organization does.
That's awesome. Yeah, because you're kind of constantly problem solving. Did you find you had a specific or particular demographic or type of customer that you're going after within the MSP?
I think every MSP finds their own niche, and for us it's been law firms and not-for-profits, but that's basic, I guess, led around my particular interests and my particular experience. But every MSP finds a place where they have when they talk to their market and realizes that they understand them better. So if you go into a space that's not one that you're familiar with, then you've got to learn the terminology, and you've got to learn the key levers that they've got, and you've got to start to learn the people around the ecosystem, the other suppliers and partners in the space, and the common problems that they've got. Whereas if you're working with customers like ones that you're familiar with, then you already have that knowledge there. You know that the providers of the specialist software, and you build those networks out. You tend to understand that in the case of law firm, most law firms share similar problems. Some of those problems are the same as other industries around, for example, cybersecurity. But some of the things that they're trying to do around, for example, complying with local trust law acts, as an example, are specific to them, and that knowledge pretty soon drives you down the direction, I think, of a vertical market. And we also know from endless webinars that we've been on that if you've got a vertical market, you should double down on that.
Yeah, I was about to say, I mean, I think one of the more successful, or most of the successful MSPs that I come across, or even with my own practice, it's been about specialization and niching down. And the more you niche down, typically the faster you scale, because you have the economies, you have that, even, little things down to the sales message is down, right? Because you can anticipate what problems are going to be on the other end, because you've seen it before, most likely, and I think that's something that a lot of MSPs, and obviously, early on for many, it's catch as catch can, and you're just kind of getting your feet off the ground. But the quicker you can pivot into that, finding your swim lanes, typically the faster you grow. So that's
absolutely right. It makes sense. If you're trying to be all things to all people, well, that's never really worked too well, unless you've got massive scale. But for those of us without massive scale, being really good at one or two things is the place that we need to focus on. And I just can think of so many examples of that, from sport to there's just so many places where you do what you do well and apply that specialist knowledge that you've developed to give yourself competitive advantage.
Yeah. So I imagine you're sitting there with the MSP, and thinking, I got another problem to solve. And so you're often in solving some challenges for, fellow MSPs. And so let's kind of get into, unless I'm missing something, unless there's a gap there, but let's talk about what you're doing today.
Yeah. So we're sitting around our MSP table a few years back, and we're sitting there realizing we've just had a customer who'd lost a sales rep, who'd gone to a competitor, and this must have been probably closer to 20 years ago. And the customer's looking at us going, "You should have stopped that. It was your fault that they copied our customer database and taken it with them." This is a long time back. I'm sitting thinking, how's that my fault that they did that? You're angry. You lost your sales rep. You wanted to blame somebody. And I thought, why was that on us to stop that from occurring? We're your IT support partner. So I sat there at the meeting and I listened to the customer and let them vent for a while. And I realized it wasn't about us. It was their frustration with their former staff member.
Mm-hmm.
But then I went for a walk and had a bit of a think, and I realized actually it was our fault. They were right. We should have asked a question that said, what's important to you? Where are the places you want to invest your IT budget? What are the things that matter to you? Have you considered A, B, and C solutions? And that got us thinking that it was our job to ask those questions and to find a way to ask those questions in a structured manner so that we could go back to the customer if they ever were trying to hold us back to account. We could say, yes, and we discussed this with you and you made this decision or that decision. And that was the start of the journey that we're on now. We created a little Excel spreadsheet. It became a database. It became, I can't remember the solutions that we built out for that. But the idea is continuing to evolve and to grow. And we're using it in our MSP to great success. Roll forward a few years and I'm sitting at a peer group meeting of other MSPs. And they're sitting there going, that's fantastic. Would you share that with us? Mm-hmm. And we thought, yeah, it's an interesting thought. How could we do that? And that's how we built getKambium. So we sat there and took our idea and said we should take our own medicine a little bit and find a way to scale and automate this fairly manual process that we've invented, and take that out to share that with other MSPs. Because if we're true to our word and true to our values, we want to lift our community's performance. Then the more MSPs out there understanding the business problems that their customers have got, then their customers are going to be more effective and we're all going to be better off as a community. So that was the step that we took to take that idea and turn it into a product. So getKambium, which is where I spend my time now. I've left my MSP behind. I'm still involved at a governance level with that, but others run it now. And I spend my time trying to take this IP that we've developed and share that with other MSPs, and that's going really well.
So, I mean, that's I've talked to quite a few former MSPs that have started an organization, and yeah, there's an element of problem solving, and they stumble on something that they can monetize, but it's normally first thought is we can monetize versus, hey, we can uplift and help our peers in the industry, and I think I think it's a great thing to hear, because again, most of the time it's just, I've got this idea, I can monetize, but it sounds like there's an underlying, kind of giving back to a degree amongst the fellow MSPs.
I hadn't thought of it that way, but you're right. But that probably goes again with my thought process, which is, we don't, just because you do something, you can sell it, doesn't mean you should. The question is understanding what the problem is that your customer is trying to solve and helping them to do that. And in that way, you're adding value. It always struck me as really weird that I'd go to a pre-sales meeting with a customer, as in my MSP capacity. I'd go to a pre-sales meeting and I'd be we'd be discussing business problems, and the advice that we'd be talking about and delivering as part of that interaction would be 100 times, 1,000 times more valuable than the service they were actually paying for, which was somebody who could log in and change their passwords for them and move their computers around. The least valuable thing that we do is that tier 1 support. The most valuable thing that we do is have a business conversation and help the customer to work out their IT strategy and how to solve their problems. And yet MSPs typically give that away for free.
Yeah.
It's bizarre. And so if we can understand the problem our customers got, then and help them solve that with IT solutions, then we're doing something that's valuable. If we're just simply selling something because we go, hey, I've got this thing, it's really good, so you should buy it. Morally, that doesn't feel right to me, even though that might be the outcome. It's more, Mr. Customer, you told me that you want to achieve X. You told me you've got X problem. Therefore, we're proposing to bring solution Y to that problem so you can achieve Z.
So if I'm an MSP, and I'm leveraging the platform, so what do I do? What's the first step, and then what do the processes look like?
Absolutely. So the trick is understanding your customer and what's important to them. It's actually number one. So if you go back to your solution sales playbook, actually it's number one thing: understand your customer and know what's important to them. Right. Well, the best way to understand your customer and know what's important to them is to talk to them and ask them questions.
Yeah.
And the best way to do that is in a structured, repeatable way. Because if you go in there one day and you just simply take a notebook, OneNote file, and you just jot down a few notes, you're going to forget things. You're going to go down tangents. If you've had a good day and the birds are singing, the sun is up, all is well, you'll probably have a pretty good session. If it's raining, the traffic's been a bit average, the kids have been playing up, all of those problems, your probably mind is elsewhere. You're not going to be best version of yourself that you can be. So the first thing that getKambium does is it helps the MSP to interact with their customer in a repeatable way and prompts them on the questions to ask to allow them to explore their customers' needs with them in an interactive workshop. So that's the first thing that we do, help the MSP to have a really productive workshop with their customer, also respectful of their time, because no one's got hundreds of hours or tens of hours to do these things. So try and do that in a way that's time efficient. Respect the customer, respect the MSP's time. Then you come back to the office and you sit there going, right, so the customer's told me X, Y, Z are their dilemmas. And so now I'm going to put forward our recommendations to solve those dilemmas. And this is where that previous experience really plays out. And it might be in vertical or it might be just business in general, but chances are 9 out of 10 things that they ask for, yep, you've seen before. So rather than rewriting those, let's grab them from a template and let's take that template and change it around a little bit to put maybe the customer's terminology in there. We might call a thing, we might call something one name, but the customer uses a different name. Might even be the correct name for it. But we talk about users and they talk about people. Let's use their language, whatever it might be. So take those recommendations, apply the ones that we've used before that are relevant, twist the words a little bit to make them reflect the customer's experience, and then turn that into a proposal or initiative to solve the dilemma. So, Mr. Customer, because X and Y, we recommend that you do Z. It's going to cost you whatever it is as a one-off capital cost, and this is going to be the ongoing running cost, and these are the benefits we can achieve. So we take that from a template, which allows you to build a roadmap for the customer. All of those added together as a roadmap. You can build those out pretty fast. As a tip, don't send it to the customer straight away. Just because you prepared it in a few hours, don't let the customer know that. Hold back for a day and send it to them and say, you know what, I've worked on this since I saw you. You want to see the effort that went into this. I've given this a lot of, I've given this a lot of thought. And you know what, this is the plan. The customer is going to sit there and go, you know what, actually, that's a really valuable piece of work you've done for us. And in our MSP business, we charge them for it because people actually don't value things that they don't pay for. So let's actually give them a charge for that. That's fair, by the way. Let's not be silly about it. Let's be sensible. And here's your roadmap, Mr. Customer, based on the workshop that we had. And again, templated, so you can drive that and build that really, really fast, but to a very high standard. And each of those recommendations you've made, of course, is a sales opportunity. So let's save that in our CRM as a sales opportunity. Now we know why something's got to be done. We know when it's got to be done. We know what it's going to achieve. We know who's approving the decision. Effectively, we've qualified that. And that's something actually a lot of the MSPs, they're mixed skills at qualifying opportunities. So we've qualified those now. We know what's going to happen. So that you've got an account plan for the client as well, but you've got an account plan for all of the accounts with whom you've gone through this process. And that's something that most MSPs aspire to do. But again, because it's time consuming and manual, they don't do it. So, hey, we've automated the process, which goes right back to, I guess, my origins. The other thing we've noticed is that strategic plans that you like these, they tend to sit on the shelf. You give it to the customer, they go, yep, that's fantastic. Thank you very much. They put it down, we'll do that, they say, and then today gets in the way. And whatever the crisis of the day is, whatever's urgent to them takes precedence. And you're sitting down with the customers now a year later, you're sitting down with the customer saying, it's time to review that plan. You pull it out, you look at it, you realize, we haven't done half of these things, because today got in the way. All of the immediate urgent things got in the way of these important things that have now been put to one side. And everyone's a bit sort of grumpy, sheepish, looking for somebody to say, hey, we should have done that. Why haven't we done that? That risk that we identified is still there. Did nothing about it. Well, life doesn't have to be that way either. That's where your QBR jumps in. And again, in my experience running an MSP, QBR is super critical. You've got to show the customer the value that you're offering, that you're providing. But the challenge is that if your QBR is sitting there saying, yeah, here's your system, Mr. Customer, these are your users, here's the ones who've left, here's the ones who've come on, here's the ticket performance that we've done, here's our SLAs, these are the machines that are getting a bit old and grey and need to be replaced. Customer knows most of that. It's a fairly transactional conversation. Pretty soon you're not talking to the senior leadership team. They've gone, you know what, actually I've got more important things to do today than to have that meeting with my MSP, and they pass you down to a line manager, they pass you down their management structure, and you find yourself increasingly dealing with somebody with more restricted decision-making authority. Whereas if you go back and you say, Mr. Customer, this is the business problem that you said, you've got this issue in your sales area, you've got this issue in operations or logistics or manufacturing. These are the IT solutions that we recommended to address those, and here's how we're going, delivering those. Suddenly you back up the tree, you're talking to people who want to talk with you because you're solving them and helping them to achieve their business plan. They desperately care about their business plan, of course, and how they're generally how their metrics, how their KPIs work, and how they're rewarded. They definitely care about that stuff. So our QBR, our idea was to make QBRs quick to prepare, because if the QBR is takes a long time to prepare, you're not going to have time as the MSP to do it. And to make the MSP QBR relevant to the customer's management team, not the stuff the MSP wants to talk about, which is typically, hey, here's how we can make your IT platform perform better than what it does now. But instead, these are the IT solutions to help your customer to achieve their business goal. And if we can chat that to them, then they're going to want to come to the QBR. It's going to be a really good use of time. And as the MSP, you can say to the customer, so because you wanted to do Y, and we recommended Z, and you want to do it this quarter, well, guess what? You need to sign off on this proposal I've given you. I need your approval so I can get that work underway. And so suddenly the activity to achieve that MSP's accountability being the customer's accountability signed off. And the customer, of course, is it's a partnership. The customer has things they have to commit to. They've got to commit to put in resource, financial resource, human resource. They've got to invest in that process, and you can make sure that they are held to account just as much as they're holding you to account. So that's our QBR process. Make sure they are purposeful and effective.
It's great to hear, because there are quite a few kind of sales process type of solutions out there, but most of them are focused just on that front end, and some have methodologies built into them, some don't. Some are just kind of a checklist type of a solution, but then there's often a divide between that front end sales process and the ongoing and the QBR, right? And so tying those two things together makes a ton of sense, because you're taking, oftentimes it's snapshot, it's kind of the sales quote process, and it's not very, I don't know, smart or intuitive. And then oftentimes MSPs looking for a standalone QBR type of solution, right? And kind of marrying those two together just makes a ton of sense, because now you're managing the full cycle, right, of working with a customer, front to back, which is where you want to be.
And we want to do it in the customer's terminology, not ours. We can quite often as MSPs, we're naturally technical folk. I'm personally found myself as an engineer for a long time in my career, MCC, or in those days C&E, in fact, if you remember back to the old Novell days. And we see things as, we see the technical benefits of the solutions that we offer. The challenge is for us is to see the business benefits to the customer. So one of the really important things that we're trying to do in our methodology is help the MSP to become that business advisor, to be less focused on what the technology specifically is and more on what the benefits are to the customer. Now, outside my, because I'm a geek ultimately, like most of us in this industry, I'm always fascinated by the newest stuff that comes out, just like, I guess, most of the people who'll be on this call. It's who we are, it's part of our DNA. So outside my office door, I've got a little glass cabinet just to remind myself that the stuff that's super cool today super cool for not very long at all. And so I've got this old Pebble watch sitting there, for example. There's an old HP Janada, one of the very first generation of pocket PC. If you remember those guys. One of those old Casio calculators I mentioned earlier on, actually got one of those sitting in the glass cabinet, box with OS2, just to remind ourselves that, you know, even someone as big as IBM can bring out stuff that's so super important, but actually no one really cares about all very much. And so forth. And it's fantastic, big glass cabinet of all the stuff that was cool once and isn't cool. Well, is now sort of more interesting. It's still cool. It's really interesting. And zip drives, iOmega zip drives and stuff like that. Just to remind ourselves that the customers don't buy IT because of what it is. Because all those things they bought to solve a problem they had at the time, they buy IT to solve a problem. And the specifics of the solution change over time. The customers need to solve the problem doesn't, and that's our job, is to understand their problem and how to apply the technologies that we can see, the stuff that we're doing today that seems super cool and groundbreaking. It gets better, but it'll be something different.
Yeah, I mean, two great nuggets. I mean, it's you know, it's starting with the customer's goals and objectives, you know, what they're trying to get out of it, you know. And I think the second is we talked about early on, like niching down, you know, and that's how you build scale. That's how you build, you know, repeatable processes. And that's how, the more successful MSPs, that's how they got to that point where, they build in those repeatable processes, they niche down, and they identify the customer's pain points, versus just trying to sell them a product. And I think that's what's interesting about the tool, is that you can have an immediate impact, a dramatic impact on both of those, elements that we talked about, kind of niching down, building the right processes, and then starting with the customers. Talk about starting with the why, right?
Exactly right.
Yeah, it's just it's super important, and it's great to see you guys are building something and have that MSP experience, kind of that lived 20, or more. I'll be easy on you, but 20 or more years of experience. Bring these methodologies and then help the community, do what you guys have done so effectively. So that's awesome.
Yeah, no, thank you. No, that's exactly the goal. So and that's what getKambium is about. Us applying our experience in our MSP, so that other MSPs can go out there and have the right conversations with their customers to help their customers achieve their goals, to help their stakeholders to do the things that are important to them, to be more efficient, to have more fulfilling interactions, to be able to go and do stuff that, if it's a not-for-profit and you're able to help a not-for-profit serve more people, that's a great thing. If it's an organization that's a commercial organization that's generating outcomes for shareholders, well, it's great to help those shareholders out and to make sure that their customers get a better experience. It's all about doing stuff that matters. Absolutely.
So I want to be respectful of yours and your dog's time this early morning. What's the best way to get a hold of you? Where do we find you?
So getKambium.com. I guess I guess you put that in the link through the session. But getKambium.com. You can, if I lean in, you can see the logo on the shirt.
There you go.
Log into that, book a meeting, and we look forward to showing MSPs how they can have those purposeful conversations with their customers and how they can scalably and repeatedly uncover what the customers need and therefore put the right solutions in front of their clients. Yeah, be cool.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining me for this session, and again, we'll have links in the show notes, and as we send the newsletters out, there'll definitely be links to getKambium, and encourage everybody to check it out, because this is what you should be doing within your MSP. If you're not doing this, then shame on you. So there's my plug. So all right, thank you for joining me this early morning, and until next time.